What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're a long-term subscriber, it's been a little while since I posted a video, so it's really good to see you guys again. And if you're new around here, thank you for joining us. We've got a super exciting video today working on my 350Z behind me, and that is a perfect time to give a shout out to Cube and the owner, Richard, down in Australia, for hitting me up and giving me the opportunity to work together and get into some new parts to install on the 350Z. Now, what's in this box here is their short throw shifter setup and shift knob for the 350Z, and this is a newer product for them within the last couple years. So Richard hit me up to see if I'd be interested in trying this product out on the Z. Now, like I did anytime a company hits me up and wants to see if I'm willing to work together, I do a lot of research on the company, the product, and make sure that it's something that I would actually want to buy for my car. And I've turned down sponsorship deals in the past because it's just not up to my standard. Now, when I did a bunch of research on Cube and their product, their company history, it was a no-brainer that I wanted to run this shifter setup in the 350Z. Now, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you may remember when I installed a Racing shifter extender and shift knob into this car. Now, that got the shifter setup closer up to the wheel, so it's closer when you're out on track and made it a little bit more natural to shift. Now, ever since I've done that, I've been continuing to try to refine this shifter setup and get it to feel exactly how I wanted. And I'll say right now that the CD009 has always been one of my favorite transmissions. I think it has a really nice, notchy mechanical feel to it, but I always felt like there was just a piece missing, and I'm very curious to see if the short throw shifter is that piece. Now, before we get too far into this, I do want to let you guys know that Richard was kind enough to set you guys up with a discount code. So if you use code Avenged10, I'll put that up on the screen here, and down in the description as well, again, that is Avenged10. That'll save you 10% on your entire order from Cube. Now, enough talking, let's go ahead and open this thing up and check it out. Okay, so a couple things right off the rip. Want to say all of this stuff is super good quality, and I cannot wait to get this in the car. I'm extremely thankful that they include a new, I think they call this a pivot cup, but usually they recommend replacing this with your short throw shifter or anytime you're putting a new shifter in the car. So it's really nice that Cube includes that. And then they include the most thorough instructions, which this is a very straightforward install, but it's always nice to have instructions. They've included a bunch of detailed steps with pictures, so you really can't mess this up, and they even have a video on their YouTube channel if you want to check this out, in addition to my video as well. But let's go ahead and get into this. So we've obviously got a few components here that we're looking at. First and foremost, let's take a look at that shift knob, because that is just super cool, nice and simple. It's got a good weight to it, and it's gonna look great in the car. Now, the rest of these pieces, including this hardware over here, are what's necessary for the short throw shifter install. So we're gonna go ahead and start working in the car and getting everything ready to get this installed, and then I'll show you what each of these pieces do, how they go in the car, and we'll get this thing installed and see how it feels. So now that we're in the car, the first order of business is gonna be getting our shifter assembly and this trim piece out of the car so we have room to work. Now, I've done this before, so I know it's a pretty simple process. I'm gonna go ahead and remove my shifter extender that we have on there. Should come off with a few spins here. So now that we've got that off, we can work on getting this trim piece out of here. And fortunately in the 350Z, it's fairly easy to get out. So I like to just reach kind of into the shifter boot there, and you'll pop up along the center console there, and you'll notice that it will release from up here as well. So once you've got that, you can kind of work it out. And the only thing we need to remove on here is the AC control harness. You can use a flathead screwdriver or in this case, the key to the car to just kind of release that. And with the wire disconnected back here, we can go ahead and pull this out of the car, exposing our shifter setup here. Now with our shifter setup exposed, we're gonna wanna remove this rubber boot, and in order to do so on the 350Z, there's a retainer with 4 10mm bolts around it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that pulled out here. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think there's another rubber boot hidden underneath this one. So we will address that when we get there. And you may notice as you start to pull this out initially that it kind of feels like it's stuck in there. Just get your fingers under it and you can kind of pry it up, and then we just got to work it out of the hole there. We'll go ahead and put that out of the way over there. And yeah, like I said, there's going to be another rubber boot here. This one is just wrapped around the metal down there. So we're going to go ahead and pull that out as well. So with both of those boots out of the way, you can see we've got this metal retainer here, which is I believe this is the reverse lockout plate that kind of holds everything in place. So eventually we're going to be removing these 3 10mm bolts to remove the whole shifter assembly, but we do need to get under the car to disconnect this actually from the shifter linkage. And this is where you're going to want to jack your car up from the front end. You can do just the front end as well and get jack stands under just the front half. Because I have a lift, I'm gonna go ahead and use the lift and get this thing up in the air so we can get this all disconnected, and then have it disconnected from the bottom so we can just pull this out from the top once it's all loose inside the car. So now that I've got the car up in the air, you can get a better idea of where we're gonna be working, and there is quite a bit of stuff in front of it, but don't worry, it's definitely accessible. It's just a little bit hard to see up here. So what we've got up here is the bottom side of the shifter. So this is right into the car right here, what we're looking at up top. And what we need to do is pull this boot down and expose the bolts that hold the shifter to the linkage. Now, there's a fixed welded bolt on the bracket on this side, so we just need, I believe it's a 10mm wrench, and we'll be able to take that bolt out and get the shifter disconnected and pull it out from the top of the car. And as I suspected, it is a 10mm, so I'm gonna go ahead and just get that removed. Having the ratcheting wrenches in this tight area definitely help with this kind of stuff, but you don't need to remove any of the pieces that are below the shifter here to get access to it. Like I said, this is a pretty simple install. So the bolt is out, that disconnects it from the shifter linkage, and we'll be able to remove this up top once we get back in the car. So the next thing we're doing is getting the main part of the short throw shifter setup installed in the car. Now, Cube says that this provides about a 30% decrease in the shifter throw length. And these guys down here are dual bearings, and they say these provide the best overall shift feel. So super excited to get these in the car. And as you can see, this is just a beautiful piece, really high quality. And like I said earlier, this is something that I would 100% buy, and is the only reason that this is getting installed on the car. So very happy with the quality of this piece, and it's everything and more from what I read online. Now, how this goes is this drops down in the car. This is gonna connect to the shifter linkage that we have down below that you saw me disconnect previously. And then this piece threads on top of here. So this is gonna screw on like so, and then you have height adjustment as well with this nut. So you can just move that up or down to get your height dialed in, and that can be done once it's in the car. So this piece, I'm gonna pull it back off for a second here. And then we've got the very top of our shifter assembly that goes in and screws on like this. Now, because Cube recommends using thread locker on all these pieces, I'm gonna put together as much as I can outside the car, and I did make sure that our pieces are gonna fit through there, and it's not something that has to be done last. So you can do this as I'm doing it, and if you are trying to run this Racing shifter extender like I have here, I went ahead and pulled out the little adapter piece and made sure that that threads right on, so we'll be able to run the short throw shifter with our shifter extender like that, and keep our shifter up high with the new short throw. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this all assembled with my Permatex thread locker, get these two pieces put together, get this on there, and we'll go ahead and drop this in the car and start working on getting everything connected. I probably almost don't even need a time lapse that being assembled because it is that easy. So that's what it looks like once it's all assembled. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave this here, and we're gonna get the stock shifter setup out of the car. So I'm back in the car now, and like I said earlier, now we just need to get these 3 bolts removed here. They're holding the shifter in from the top. Because we've disconnected it from the bottom, once we get those out, we should be able to pull this guy right out of the shifter. Like I said, this is a really easy install. I'm literally taking these guys out one-handed while holding the camera. So, of course, right as I brag about doing it, that one bites me a little bit, but just gonna work our way around, get that plate loosened up, and Cube does include their own new plate and hardware, so we will not be reusing what we're taking out of the car right now. So, bolts are out, plate comes out, and this guy should pop right up. There is a spring underneath it for the reverse lockout, so we want to make sure we don't lose that because this guy is going to be going back in. But there's our stock shifter setup right there. And as you can see, like I was talking about earlier, these cups do get worn out. So it's really awesome that Cube includes this because not all short throw shifter companies do. And it's one less thing you have to go buy. Okay, so now that we're back in the car, make sure you've got the reverse lockout spring still in the shifter. We're gonna go ahead and get this assembly all installed in there. And I'm leaving the zip tie on there until I get underneath the car just to make sure that these bearings stay in place. So we're gonna go ahead and feed that through. And there's a couple things that we need to do here. So for one, you wanna make sure we have this reverse lockout pin aligned to the right. And then there is a little kind of indentation within the shifter piece here. And you'll notice a matching piece on the plastic insert there. So we wanna make sure that those two things are lined up as we feed this back down into the car. Easy, just like that. So we're gonna put the first plate back on, and with the Cube setup in particular, we wanna make sure that the larger opening for the reverse is facing to the right, matching up with that pin there. And then we're gonna go ahead and put this top piece back over the top. And I'm gonna go ahead and just get the bolts started in here nice and loose. Okay, so I've got that loosely sitting in there. So directly from the instructions, this reverse lockout plate combined with the horizontal reverse lockout pin, which we have over here on the shifter lever, not only prevents accidental engagement of the reverse gear, it also acts as a guide to guide the shifter into 5th and 6th. The reverse lockout plate also has slots that the retaining bolts pass through. This allows the plate to be easily adjusted side to side into the perfect position for engaging 5th and 6th easily, while also locking out accidental engagement of the reverse gear. So in order to get this adjusted, it wants us to put the car in 5th gear. So I'm gonna go ahead and get down under the car and get this piece connected, and we'll start working on getting this adjusted once we've got everything connected below. All right guys, welcome back under the car. So as you can see here, we've got the shifter linkage, and I'm gonna go ahead and feed that around our new short throw shifter from Cube. Gotta get that lined up so we can get the bolts to go through. Got those nice dual bearings on the side there. So the bolt that goes through here does come with the kit from Cube, and it's one of 4 bolts. The other 3 look the same, so it's very easy to tell this one apart. And once you've got everything lined up, you should be able to feed that through. Get it all tightened down with our 10mm wrench again. Move the camera to try to give you guys a little bit better view, but it is tucked up there, so it's quite hard to see what I'm doing. But we're just gonna get this bolt tightened back down, refit the boot around the bottom of the shifter, and then we will be done on the bottom of the car. Really not a painstaking process by any means. Got that nice and snug. So now I just need to refit this boot, and in all honesty, I'm sure this was easy, but it might be the hardest part of the whole install, so I should tell you how straightforward it is, but go ahead and just pull it back around. And the real trick here is just getting it back up over the lip on the bottom side of the transmission. So if you can see back up there, we've got our boot all reinstalled. So I'm gonna bring the car back down and get this thing buttoned up. Okay, so now we've got everything connected down below. We wanna go ahead and put the car up in 5th, which it looks like I've gotta move this plate over a little bit already just to even get it up in 5th. So that's the nice thing about this being a slotted adjustable piece. Now we're up in 5th, and it says move this plate over until the reverse lockout pin here is touching this side here, and then we want to just back it off slightly so there's about 1 millimeter of gap. Got 1 millimeter so small, it's like, is that enough? Is it too much? I'm gonna go ahead and say that's good there, and then we're gonna tighten all these down. Oh, that moved completely. Okay, so I got my millimeter. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten. So now at this point, we should be able to get into 5th and 6th easily. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Cool, so we can get into all of those, and then reverse is down and under. Cool, so this appears to be working as intended. So as long as you can get into 5th gear over here, it's not rubbing or anything like that, and we can get into it with ease, means I've got this plate in the right area. So if you can't get into 5th and 6th easily, it just means you need to do a little bit of adjusting of the plate, but it appears we've got this in the right area, and this thing is pretty much almost installed. Mine is getting it put back together, but that really does have a nice notchy mechanical feel. Just feels very intentional, very race car. This is gonna be nice out on the track. All right, so that's gonna wrap up the actual shifter portion of the install. Now we just gotta get everything put back together. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this stuff back in. You guys can figure this out, so I'm not gonna walk you through it, but put this back on, bolt that down, put this back on. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this done, and then we can do first test drive and see how this thing feels. Okay, so I got the interior all back together. Only one minor setback. Unfortunately, the Cube knob does not work on top of my racing shifter extender. So for now, we're just gonna run it with the Cube shift knob on there. Let me show you guys. Got everything all put back together. That Cube shift knob is super clean. Really like that. So just give you an idea of kind of where the shift throws are at. Nice and short throws in between each gear. But now that's all back together, I think we gotta take it out for a spin. right away, I am loving the way this shifter feels. Before, it kind of had this feeling where the shifter was just kind of floating around, and like while you knew where the gears were, it almost felt like it could go like anywhere. Like it really didn't feel like it had like strong directional feel to it in the shifter. This is very, very much so a nice mechanical feeling shifter. You know exactly where the next gear is. It's easy to get into it. It doesn't fight you at all. Man, this feels so good. This has definitely been the missing piece in this car to really kind of give you a better driver feel in the car. So much of what I've done for this car has been about driver experience, from bucket seats that really hold you in, a nice steering wheel setup that really feels good in hand, and you have great seating position. This is just kind of the final piece that I was missing, and I really cannot believe I waited so long to get this. Man, what a nice piece. I'm gonna try to find somewhere here where I can get past third or fourth gear just to really roll through some gears for you guys, but I am blown away by this. Like I said, super easy install, and it's something that gives you kind of instant gratification on the driver feel of the car. Oh my God, it feels so good. I cannot recommend this enough. Richard, thank you for sending this out for the Z. This thing feels absolutely incredible. I should have done this so long ago. So I'm gonna pull over and try to get a different angle for you guys, just to give you a little better perspective on kind of what the throw is like. It's, like I said, noticeably shorter. Cube says this is about a 30% decrease in the shifter throw, and I think it's truly perfect. You see most of the other ones that I've seen are 30% or a little bit higher than that. I don't think you'd want any more reduction than what this gives. I think this is really kind of a perfect happy medium. But man, it totally transforms how this car feels, and especially for a car, if it's a car you're driving spiritedly on the weekends, or something like this that's set up to be a fun track toy, something like this is really just a must in my opinion. Nice engagement point. It just feels solid. I cannot recommend this piece enough. This totally transformed the way the car feels, and like I said earlier, I'm just so bummed that I didn't do this earlier.